share whatever we have with as many people as we can. Shalom Uvracha. This evening we are privileged to study Parashat Naso with special focus on one of the major themes of this week's Torah section, a topic which has intrigued me for a very long time, and that is the topic of the Nazir. There's a certain classification of an individual who takes upon himself or herself a certain vow of Naziriteship, where they separate themselves from various forms of pleasures, including the pleasure of drinking wine. What's unusual about the laws of the Nazir is that at the end of the period of Naziriteship, the minimum period is 30 days. At the end of that period, the Nazir has to offer certain sacrifices in the temple. Several times in our chapter here, in chapter 6 of the book of Numbers, the Torah speaks about a sin offering. And the question is, why would a Nazir have to bring a sin offering? What's the sin? If anything, we would recognize the Nazir to be someone who has gone beyond, has taken upon himself or herself certain added levels of righteousness, not sinfulness. And yet the Torah says that he or she shall bring the sacrifice, v'chiper alav me'asher chata ala nafesh. There has to be some kind of atonement for an act regarding the soul. V'chavsa achat bat shnata t'mima l'chatat. A sin offering by a Nazir? Why? The rabbis explain that despite the fact that a Nazir surely has the highest level of intention of trying to serve God with purity, trying to stay away from some of the major temptations of life, nevertheless, the vow of Naziriteship, which limits him, which excludes him from the pleasure of enjoying the blessings of God as manifest in the wine, that itself is considered a sin. V'chiper alav me'asher chata ala nafesh. V'chibei nefesh chata zeh. What kind of sin against the soul? Ela shetzi'er atzmo min hayayin. Because he denied himself the pleasure that God permitted. One could suggest that perhaps there's so many negative uses, even till today, God forbid, so many different forms of drinking that could lead to various forms of horrific behavior. Nevertheless, the Torah insists that we try to figure out a way to use the world, to indulge properly with the highest level of purity in all of the gifts of God in this world. There's a ceremony every Friday night. There's a ceremony every Saturday afternoon, every holiday evening, every holiday afternoon. And the ceremony is called Kiddush. Kiddush means sanctification, holiness. Surprisingly enough, that ceremony is recited upon wine. One lifts the cup of wine in one's hand, and that's Kiddush. Kiddush on wine? Holiness and wine? In many people's minds, they can't possibly go together. When you speak about something unholy, very often they speak about wine. And perhaps the ceremony of Kiddush is precisely the ceremony of holiness together with wine, to demonstrate that the Jewish perspective is that one can be holy and drink wine. Similar to the Hebrew word, or one of the Hebrew words for formal halachic engagement, for a form of marriage relationship, which is also called holiness. Kiddushin, the same root. The rabbis teach that although to fast is considered a certain kind of great spiritual accomplishment, one removes oneself from eating and drinking and indulging. Amar Shmuel, according to at least one school of thought in Talmud, Kol hayoshev b'ta'anit. If one voluntarily takes upon oneself the concept of fasting, nikra chotei. Such an individual is called a sinner. A sinner? What are they sinning? They're fasting. The opposite. They're removing the physical indulgences. That's precisely the point. God created the world so we should enjoy it, not that we should separate from it. You know, the holiday of Shavuot, which often is right before Parashat Naso, adjacent to Parashat Naso, there's one aspect of the sacrifice of Shavuot which often reminds me of this teaching of the Nazir. And that is that in the Torah, the offering of Shavuot is one of the few offerings, maybe the only offering, other than perhaps certain types of breads that were brought together with the Thanksgiving offering. Generally speaking, the temple is kasher lePesach the entire year, as the Mishnah teaches in Masechet Menachot, Kol HaMenachot Ba'ot Matzah. Every time one had to bring a flour offering, it was always a matzah offering. It was never a leavened product, it was never chametz, it was never ordinary bread. However, if one studies carefully the section of Shavuot in the 23rd chapter of Leviticus, Mimoshevotechem taviu lechem tenufa, shtayim, shnei esronim, solet tehiyena, chametz teafena. The famous shtei halechem, the two special breads that were part of the sacrificial order of Shavuot. The Torah emphasizes chametz teafena. Wasn't it just a few weeks ago that everyone was speaking about how chametz represents the opposite of holiness? Chametz represents arrogance. Chametz is a symbol of the evil inclination. So on the holiday of Shavuot, the holiday of Torah, the sacrifice has to be made of chametz, the very product which we burnt right before Pesach. We're burning all the chametz. We're removing all the chametz. So why is the Shavuot offering chametz teafena? And perhaps the message seems to be that if one follows the Torah properly and carefully, then all forms of endeavor, all forms of activities, if they're done according to Torah, are permitted, are proper. Even those aspects which seem to us chametz. Why did we have to remove the chametz before Pesach, conceptually speaking? Because we didn't yet receive the Torah. Because the Torah guides us on how to bring about this great fusion between the blessings of this world and all of the aspects of holiness. One would think that Shavuot is a holiday of Torah. It's a spiritual holiday. So maybe the most appropriate way to get the Torah would be to separate from this world. I believe that's the very point. The point is that if you really understand Torah, the Torah was not given to us so that we should separate from this world. The Torah was given to us to properly enjoy every aspect of the blessing of God. May God guide us in the proper levels of behavior to properly enjoy the blessings of God's world. Shahakol bara l'chvodo. Every aspect of creation can be connected to the glory of God. May we understand how to do it properly so that we do not have to go to the world of Nazariteship and be able to serve God properly through the holiness of a connection to this world. Thank you so much for listening. Shalom.
Somebody wrote to me, as someone who has made a conscious choice not to have children, I find the topic of the discussion personally offensive.
I surely bless him with the highest level of success. I think I tried to express last week, maybe not successfully, so I'd like to reiterate it because it was a point that was very important to me, that I'm not trying to in any way belittle or diminish the greatness of people in the world who do not have children, but rather to show and to share the sources of the great levels of accomplishment of those that do. I don't know this person, obviously. I don't know what motivated him to make this choice. But it seems from the Torah, as I tried to say last week, that this is a very, very great level of endeavor. There are other ways of bringing special blessings to the world. The rabbis speak about people who teach someone else's child. It's as if they bore that child. Someone who supports someone. Often that's considered a form of a parent also. Someone who guides someone, someone who adopts a child. I don't know what motivated our friend in Las Vegas. I'm not one to judge. And if it was offensive to him, as you said, I apologize publicly in front of anyone who's listening. I surely didn't mean to offend anyone. I was trying to quote the teachings of God and the teachings of the rabbis. If he came to a conclusion that he cannot or does not want to. That's, I guess, between him and God. But I do hope that he understands that those people who are bringing children to the world are providing for the whole future of the existence on this planet. If everyone would take that position, where would we be, right? That could be the utter destruction of the universe. And sometimes one of the ways, according to at least one school of thought, one should ask oneself, would they like everyone to follow this position? So I don't think that this gentleman would want everyone to follow this, obviously. He wants the world to continue. He wants it to be future generations. As a particular personal choice, that's surely something that he has made. But I think we have to speak also not just about individuals, but about the collective good of the betterment and perfection of society.